Bracketology, presented by Dave Campbell's Texas Football, breaking down the 2022 Texas High School Football Playoff brackets. That's Ishmael Johnson. I'm Greg Tepper. This is 2A Division I, dropping down to the 2A level. And there's been so much made about this half of the bracket. This half of the bracket is where we're going to talk a lot about kind of the powers that be, because we've had two-time defending state champ is here, a team that they seem to always see in the regional final is here. You've also got the number one team over here. But I do think that there's kind of intrigue in every single region, which is going to make this a lot of fun.
Yep, I agree. I definitely think the narrative has been over here, right? Recent history has been over here, definitely. But there always seems to be an interesting team or two to come out of this side of the region, and I feel like that's flipped more or less every year, except I'm trying to think. I think it's flipped for the past couple, like 5 years. It's always been a different team coming out of this side.
Well, let's go to Region 1, where you'll find the team that made the state championship last year in the Hawley Bearcats. The number 2 team in the state have been cruising, undefeated, and I will say that I think that they've taken a step forward offensively because they've been able to throw the ball a little bit more. Austin Compton is back running the ball as well. They look like the favorite, at least in the bottom half of the bracket, but I'll tell you, up here, Stratford and Cisco in a second-round matchup is tasty, tasty stuff.
I was about to say, ever since Cisco dropped down from 3A D2, I've been waiting for them to kind of have this season that they're having, and they've always been like a team, a solidly competitive team. This year seems like a team that can make a regional final run and really push things here.
Yeah, remember, Cisco and Hawley played an absolute banger in Week 11 with Hawley getting a very narrow win. So could we be in for a rematch? Keep an eye on Stratford as well. Again, another defending state champ that I feel like we haven't talked about enough. Moving up from 2A Division 2 to 2A Division 1, undefeated, looking very good, but they will get a snootful of 2A Division 1 when you're talking about a team that used to be 3A and a team that used to be 2A Division 2, kind of meeting there in the second round. Could be fun. Hawley, I think, could be your favorite there, and I think they probably got the better draw here as well. Let's go to Region 2. Over to Region 2, where this is probably the one that is probably the biggest mystery and probably the fewest brand names here. But allow me to introduce you to Crawford, who has been very, very strong all year long. And then up here, the champions of District 5, Toller, are probably the two teams here that are in the best position to make a run. Although, don't sleep on Coleman, which is a team that I think has some individual playmakers.
I was about to say, Toller and Coleman played in a pretty great game earlier this year. Toller, of course, came out of. Marlin, of course, we had some questions when Darian Gillette went down, but they've quietly been pretty okay since district started. Do they have the ceiling that Darian Gillette gave them, right, against a Toller, against potentially in a regional final against a Crawford or Coleman? Do they have enough to potentially get past that? We'll see, because last year, and with Darian Gillette, they were a team that absolutely just looked like a state title contender. Probably should have been playing for a state championship, right? Are they at that team this year? We'll see.
Yeah, two sleepers here. Tioga, I think, Chad Rogers done a fantastic job there with that young program, and then keep an eye on Cayuga as well there. Okay, over to Region 3, where again, we're starting to talk about real bona fide state championship contenders. You have the number 1 team in the state right here in the Timpson Bears with maybe the number 1 player in the state in Terry Bussey.
I was about to say, we saw that game early in the season against Beckville. Now, let me say, if they play again in a regional final, I don't think it's that blowout
It'll
again.
Be closer,
Beckville's definitely gotten their feet under them. But Timpson, the thing about Timpson is it's not just Terry Bussey, man. Bosky Howard's been fantastic. They have a line, they have a defense that's very swarming, very athletic. And so, although Terry Bussey's getting all the numbers, he's probably going to be a Miss Texas football finalist, things like that. They have an entire team, which I think was different than past years, right? It seemed like it was all or nothing with that when Bussey was an underclassman. It feels like they have a lot more supporting talent around them and experience around them, more notably.
Yeah, elsewhere in Region 2, or Region 3 rather, if you're looking for contenders, we mentioned Beckville. I like this Joaquin team a lot, which gave Timpson a really nice run there in district play. Keep an eye on Corrigan Camden, which is a team I've been high on all year long. And then the champions of that district, Centerville, I think is a team to keep an eye on. They really drubbed Corrigan Camden in that final game. Honeygrove, an interesting team as well out of District 9. Okay, down to Region 4, which has dominated 2A Division 2, or 2A Division 1 rather, for the past few years. They've got the 2-time defending state champs in Shiner. Shiner still has that dude in Dalton Brooks, who is capable of taking over. I will say that I think they've got a pretty favorable, I think between them and the other team in this region, Refugio, those feel like, again, we're on a collision course. Now, because they're in the same district, they'll come to a regional final.
I was about to say, this, we had questions about when one of the Brooks brothers left, right? When you have both of them, it's just kind of unfair. You have the Thunder and Lightning. Now you take the Thunder away, and it's like, okay, Dalton Brooks, still a stellar athlete, still probably the best player in the state with Terry Bussey, especially in this classification. But Now you don't have that sledgehammer there, right?
Yeah.
What happens when, and Refugio got him in the regular season, right? They won that district. So what happens when when you have maybe, I don't want to say you're one-dimensional, right? That's not necessarily what Shiner is, but you have that one home run hit, right? You don't have that down-to-down sledgehammer that you used to have. What happens when it gets to playoff time, right? When you have to play teams that probably are used to seeing guys faster than them as opposed to a guy that's faster than them and stronger than them that they had. Now, this also could be Dalton Brooks' breakout year where he really sets himself apart and shows the 5-star talent that he does have.
Refugio, of course, the champions of District 15, beat Shiner. I think that the way that Coach Jason Herring has kind of updated that offense and their defense is playing better, they just match up better now up front than they did last year. I will just say this, if we are heading for Shiner and Refugio Part 2, it's hard to beat a good team twice.
Yeah,
and how much did Daniel Boddicker show in that first game? Elsewhere, I like this Flatonia team. Mason, of course, is a team that is always kind of in the mix, but it really does feel like we're heading for Shiner and Refugio Part 2. So when you take a look at this whole bracket, again, focusing on this side of it, focusing on the left side of the bracket, if you take a look at the way that this thing breaks down, one of the questions we have is, can Region 3 beat Region 4? Region 4 has dominated Region 3 traditionally. Can they do it this year? That's the real question.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's last year Timpson probably should have beat Shiner. I think that they'll probably look at that game and say, man, we gave them our best shot, and eventually it was just kind of, they had the two talented players on Shiner. I do wonder, though, this side of the region, right, or this side of the bracket, I should say, definitely always has intriguing stories, intriguing teams coming. Yeah, exactly. So, I don't know. I think this is the year Region 3 gets them, right? It's going to feel weird saying that against Region 4 and 2A D1, but I think this might be the year that Region 3 comes out on top.
No matter what happens, we'll have you covered every step of the way at TexasFootball.com.